Hello, thanks for joining. My name is Michelle Davis, and I manage the solutions architect for the DoD team for Red Hat Public Sector. And I am joined with Eamon McCormick. He is the tech sales leader for public sector for Red Hat. Thank you for joining, Eamon.
Yeah, I'm happy we got a chance to do this. It's exciting.
Yeah, so today, at this fabulous conference we're at, we're talking about adopting the cloud. So I thought today we talk about some of the challenges for cloud adoption.
Yeah.
And we know every agency, every company is trying to go to the cloud. They're trying to get all the benefits and the promises that the cloud has touted, such as reduced costs, agility, scalability, things like that. In some cases, better security. But as these companies and agencies try to reach that cloud nirvana, there are many challenges that they will face, and we have probably helped our customers through.
Yeah.
So we're gonna just talk about today some of the findings over the years that Red Hat have found and seen as we help our customers take this journey. But in a nutshell, our customers are all looking for faster innovation, economies of scale, and flexible resources. And in DoD terms, we try to say we're trying to get decision dominance. We're trying to shorten the kill chain. We're trying to get an integrated joint coalition. But again, the cloud plays a major part of that.
Yeah.
But it takes a really well thought out strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a broad topic. It's really important. I think so when we say public sector at Red Hat, we're talking about state and local and all different sectors of federal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit different for every sector that you see out there. Like if I think about the state and local organizations that we work with, in a lot of cases, because they've got limited staff, limited expertise internally, they are all in on the cloud. Like they've looked to shut down data centers completely.
Yes.
And their first choice, if it's available for any kind of capability they're looking for, is a SaaS. If somebody else is running the entire service and they can just, with their integrator partners, they can just consume that service without having to worry about spinning up servers and installing software and integrating things and doing the security themselves, that's attractive to them. On the flip side, in federal, we definitely see more hybrid and multi-cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gotten there. I can't say that it was initially a defined strategy to get to that footprint, to have data centers and have footprint multiple clouds. They just they made decisions along the way that put them there. So there might have been an edict to shut down a data center or two. So they tried to move entire operations into a cloud. And maybe they started with AWS. That was, that was kind of the early decision for a lot of agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up with, core data center operations in the cloud, and it's great for them because there's no hardware life cycle. Like they can get access to services whenever they want. But then they realized, oh, I need a specific data science service, or there's some unique third-party application that runs in the cloud that we need. So maybe a program made their own decision to start up another service in another cloud. So all of a sudden, even though they didn't plan it, they're multi-cloud at that point, and they still have a data center. So it's interesting that kind of evolved into that, and I know we're going to talk about it today. That definitely Edge has really come into the mix too, and we kind of consider that part of hybrid cloud. So yeah, in terms of strategy, I don't know that it was a strategy to get to multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, but our customers are definitely there at this point. I was with a pretty large civilian customer last week with one of their senior decision makers, and they had a while ago gone all in with one cloud to run it's a citizen-facing service that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're actually starting to develop a footprint in other clouds, and they're doing it for a few. They now actually have a strategy about this. They've found some services that they like better in some of the other clouds. So for those specific capabilities, they're moving to those other clouds.
Mm-hmm.
But they also, their core operation, they want to get that to a point where they have leverage and ability to take that whole operation and running it in one cloud today and move it to another cloud tomorrow. And they want to do that based on maybe there's a cost reason, maybe it's a contractual reason that they want to do that. Maybe it's a redundancy and disaster recovery. There's a concern that, if one of the clouds has a complete outage, they want to be able to very quickly shift that whole operation, all the applications, all the systems that make it up from the cloud that they're in to the new cloud, spin it up and suffer very little downtime. So yeah, there's a bunch of different decision points that are now starting to shape the strategy that we're seeing with our federal customers. What are you seeing in the DoD?
Well, it's kind of very similar to what you just said. We tell people the edict is the cloud you start with today may not be the best fit tomorrow.
Yeah.
So always prepare for that.
Yeah.
As the battle management aids, which are like the software that supports the troops and stuff, their location and where they reside can change based on the situation.
Yeah.
So we tell folks a multi-cloud strategy is not enough. A hybrid cloud strategy is what they should be looking for, because not only will you have public clouds, but you'll also have the data that can't leave your silo.
The data center, yeah.
Yes, that data is secure. You spent decades securing it, PII data, that it puts you in a hybrid cloud mode instantly.
Yeah.
Where I'm processing here, I'm building, my development's going on in the cloud, but my data remains in-house, safe and secure. Yeah. So I find folks, no matter how they start or where they start, they find themselves at a hybrid situation because of the data most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's the data. I agree. The other thing we're seeing, like part of that strategy, if you want to have the flexibility to move from cloud to cloud and deploy some things in cloud A, some things in cloud B, some things in cloud C, you want to limit the number of native cloud services that you leverage, right? The ones that only run on a specific cloud, like a data science service, maybe a serverless service that's unique only to that one cloud. It's a branded product on that cloud. If you use it, it's got its own set of APIs. It's got its own set of approaches that you have to architect to. So what our customers are starting to learn is they have to create a core architecture that itself is portable. So you can't go all in on every cloud native service. You leverage them for the infrastructure for the most part. And if there's compelling mission specific capabilities that you need, you obviously tie into those. But like the core architecture of the applications that you want to be able to run in multiple locations, what we find is that building those on open source technologies that are portable, that give the developers, the operators, regardless of what cloud you're running in, the approach is the same. The code that you write, how you deploy, the pipelines that you have, to push code into production, to test code on its way, that whole thing has to be portable, and doing that on open source software is a great way to get there.
Absolutely. And the one other thing we stress when we talk about a hybrid cloud is when you talk about multi-clouds, that just means you're using two clouds in your environment, but those two clouds are totally separate. They're operating as they are. A hybrid cloud solution means they're operating as one. Their processing power, all their services power are operating as one cohesive unit. And you don't sometimes know where things are running as a developer or as a user.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to know, right?
That's right.
Yeah, agreed.
So hybrid cloud, and one other thing I'll talk about with the hybrid cloud before we move on to maybe the next strategy is that when you're given all this flexibility, make sure when you're looking at a hybrid cloud or your cloud platform, that it has the ability to communicate and have the connections and such built in so that it makes it easier for the technician to put these applications together. So that's just a caveat, make it easy to set up and easy to secure.
Yeah, agreed. And you hit on the point. I don't want to belabor the point, but the data is super important, right? Like understanding where your data resides and what's the impact. If the data lives in the data center, what's going to be the cost, the egress and ingress costs of having your apps run in the cloud, or if your data lives in one of the clouds, what's your strategy for actually making sure your applications can access that when they need to? We're definitely starting to see the advent of data solutions like data meshes that can run
Yes.
across clouds that treat multiple clouds as if it's, your data lives in one location and you act instead of replicating data everywhere, but like actually creating accessibility to the data.
And I'm an old service-oriented architect, and I love the fact that services, the notion of services is coming back.
Yeah.
It should have never went anywhere, but it's coming back. So yeah. So let's talk about another strategy that Red Hat always advocates, and that's shifting security left.
Yeah.
Building security into everything. Which is just interesting. I had this stat where IBM found that the rise of AI has also increased the rise of breaches.
Yeah.
Because connectivity and sensors and things like that everywhere.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there, and how do you, when we talk about shift left, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's like I mean, that's a topic you can spend days and weeks just discussing, like all the different aspects of security. For us, it starts in our own products and how we deliver and provenance, like where the different underlying open source components are coming from and how they're tested and secured, making their way into our software that gets deployed. So that's like on our side, software bill of materials, right? That's a really important consideration. So that's just the software that our customers are going to be using. But then when they actually move it into their environment, we're talking about hybrid cloud, right? So it doesn't really matter where the app is going to be deployed, data center, one of multiple clouds, or out to the edge. You want to have a comprehensive process that is testing your code and everything like around the system, the networking, the data in motion, the data at rest, making sure you're testing the security at every level. Like when you deploy to development, you've got smoke tests that run that have some level of security testing, maybe, static code analysis, a little dynamic code analysis. And then as you move through other stages, actually having a security stage where you test the encryption of the network mesh that your applications are running on, that they test the encryption of the data at rest and in motion, and having a repeatable process that when you're moving code into production, that every layer of the application is tested, from the infrastructure to the network, to the application components, to the communication among the application components, making sure that you've secured every aspect of that. That's like an overgeneralization, but it's kind of the zero trust
model,
overarching concept. Yeah. What do you think?
It sounds like the secure software factory.
Yes.
That's all the hype these days. There's probably not one, but maybe many software factories in most companies these days.
Yeah.
Now are they secure?
Yeah.
Do we know they're secure? Do we trust them? Do we know that they do no harm? And do we know that they have not been harmed?
Yeah.
So those are the big rocks right now that people are tackling, that we see in our customer base. And again, just involving the security folks at the beginning, even before development, gives the developers a security posture that will catch these flaws earlier, that will result in better quality software that we put out there.
Yeah. And honestly, we deal in the world of automation, role-based access to automation that's happening. And then Kubernetes, the role that Kubernetes plays as the platform that these applications are going to run on. It eliminates, like if you create a secure software supply chain, a pipeline on a Kubernetes-based platform, you should be able to eliminate any escalation of privilege, right? Like in order to fix a defect that's in production, you shouldn't have to give someone root access to the production system to go fix it. You basically just push the code back through that pipeline. It's all containerized. The environment should be identical. And you start from the beginning to push the code changes or to push the configuration changes. And they go through those same tests again. You should never have to give a developer elevated privilege to a system like a pre-prod or a prod system. So that's definitely a major change that, 15 years ago, there was a lot of that, right? There was a lot of developers, sysadmins getting credentials onto the production systems to make a change.
It was a fast way for testing, and I do notice too, even back to the developers, even code signing now is becoming extremely prevalent.
Yeah.
Do you attest to this software? Do you stamp it in software that's been tampered or is not signed, is not allowed? But bottom line is make sure there's a continuous monitoring, continuous management solution there to verify these things that you put into practice. Early on in the development stage. But yes, shifting security is all about getting it at the beginning and catching it fast. So that's again one of our big paradigms.
Hey, we're at 15 minutes. We got two topics. Do you want to pick one of the two to hit?
Let's talk about the edge.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's what I would have chosen too.
Let's talk about the edge, because as we talked about, making sure you have a hybrid strategy. That is because edge and AI are inevitable in your infrastructures, in your environments. If you don't consider it up front, it will hit you later because it is an environment that's going to happen. What makes the edge so different, though?
Yeah, it's honestly, as a software provider, our software should allow you to treat edge systems in the same way you treat cloud or data center. What makes edge different is the hardware and the location where the hardware is running, right? It's usually DDIL, it's disconnected, it's intermittent, it's latent, low latency. And then the hardware environments are totally different. Like at the sensor level, you've got low cost hardware that's provided by those thousands of providers. Maybe a step back from that, if you think about the hardware profile in a vehicle, in a war theater, like in a Humvee or at sea, in an airplane, in a helicopter, in a hospital, in a police car, that kind of thing, right? That's a little bit more like a data center in a box, but it's still a unique piece of hardware. So you have to be able to push code. You have to be able to push and test code in your cloud environment, like in your development environment, and emulate where it's ultimately going to run and make sure it's going to run. But then you should have a pipeline that's able to push to that hardware. It's where it's going to actually run. And the role of AI out there. So that's kind of edge, but AI and edge are like totally, I don't know if you think so, right? They're totally interwoven. You want to, if think about a justice use case. If there's an agent in the field consuming variables about a situation and about an individual, you don't want that data to have to go back to the cloud for processing and for them to have to wait to make their decision about how to act. You want that processing to happen in the vehicle that they're in, right? Like on the edge device, and give them feedback right away. Ultimately the data is going to go back to the cloud and become part of a grander data story where we can run real analytics against. But you want to be able to make real-time decisions like, do we deploy the special operations force right now, given the weather variables, given the troop movement we've seen, given our surveillance level, right? Like all these different variables, you need data science to make those decisions right then and there.
That's correct. You said it. Faster decision making is what everyone's after. We must remember we have to be stewards of bandwidth. And so sending large chunks of data, we are generating more data per minute than we've generated in decades. So being stewards of bandwidth and recognize again, processing that data, coming up with that decision where that data is generated. Because we cannot keep going back and forth because we need to make rapid decisions.
That is, I know for you, like you and your team are really focused on it. You're researching the market opportunity around edge. You're digging into the use cases. We're building out demos and white papers and everything like that. It is, cloud is obviously still big. It's still a behemoth. It's growing like crazy, but edge is where the explosive growth appears to be, and then obviously everything that's going on with AI ML right now. It's
correct,
it's where we're going to spend a lot of time.
And we do know edge. We already have solutions in theater, in the belly of ships, on planes. Now it's just tighten that up, put them in container environments, leveraging our experience of how we manage those environments, and putting them to real use.
Your team is where I would go if I had any questions about edge and data science, that's for sure.
Thank you. And we gladly take the questions. Appreciate the time today. Didn't think 20 minutes would go by so fast in such an entertaining conversation.
We can go for another 20 minutes.
Thanks. And again, any questions, please reach out to us here at Red Hat. We know this space. We know these solutions. We're here to help.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.